What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Poor Man Mods. Today we're right in the middle of doing the cam upgrade, and we're going to be changing the valve stem seals in this. Now we're doing it now because the cams are out, and it just makes perfect sense why, while everything is torn apart, to do the valve stem seals. And a lot of people either don't know how to do it, or are afraid to do it, or don't have the tools to do it. So today we're going to show you exactly how to do it, at least the way we're doing it. Maybe it's not the preferred way, but we're going to show you the tools we're using and how to do it, and it's actually pretty easy. You just need to be very patient with it. So why don't you come over here and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so we do have some specialty tools that we need for this, or you might not need these, but it makes it a lot easier. Now this is a valve keeper removal tool, and it comes with two of them. One's for smaller valves, the other's for bigger valves. And I'll have a link to this in the description of the video so you can pick it up too. But what this does, this is the keeper remover. Put it on the spring, hit it with a hammer, takes the keeper off, and then put it back on. Bam, put it back on. It takes 5 seconds to do it with this tool. It's a lot easier than using a socket and a magnet, and safer, but this is more expensive. So pick your poison, but I think this is well worth the money, especially if you're going to be doing this more than one time. Or you could buy this tool and then sell it to a friend or rent it out to people or whatever. And this is a valve seal remover and installer tool. It's a whole kit. This is the remover right here. It's basically pliers, stick it down in there, get on the seal, pull it out, and then to reinstall it, you take either one of these two fittings, whichever one the seal fits on, thread it on here, put the seal facing up in here, put it down on the valve, and give it a couple taps with a hammer, and it will be seated perfectly. Now, once again, you might be able to get away doing this job without purchasing these tools, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier to do. Like light years easier to do, and they're not that expensive. I'll have the links to both of these tools in the description of the video. And we are doing this on a 1J, so the valve seals for the exhaust side and intake side are different. So we have some exhaust seals here. We already did cylinders 1 and 2 for this, so we're a third of the way done. And here's the intake. We got these from Drift Motion. Now, I believe the 2Js have the same valve seals, but this is the 1J, and they are different, so you need to get 12 intake and 12 exhaust ones. And now we're going to show you exactly how to do this. Okay, so the very first thing you need to do this is obviously take the valve covers off and the cams off. You can watch how to do that in the first episode, or the first part of the cam upgrade video. But what we're going to do now, we're going to do cylinder number 3. So these 4 valves, and number 3 and number 4 have the same stroke. So we have an extension in the 4th cylinder, and we're going to get this to bottom dead center. Just watch the extension. Okay, now it's at bottom dead center. Now the reason we're putting this at bottom dead center is because we're going to fill the cylinder up with rope. Some people use compressed air. I don't have access to that right now. But we're going to put the piston all the way down, put as much rope in the cylinder as we can, push it up, leave it sit there for a little bit, compress the rope, push the piston down again, and put more rope in there so the valves don't fall into the cylinder. If you're using smaller rope, you might not need to do it twice, but since this is bigger rope, it doesn't want to fit in there well, so we have to compress it and then shove more rope in there so the valves don't fall in. I would recommend using maybe 1/8 inch rope. The smaller the rope, the easier it's going to be. And I have this tape mark here. This roughly stuck out about 3 inches past the cylinder, so we're going to try to match it up because this has worked on 2 cylinders before. So now we're going to push the cylinder up and hold this rope here. Now we're gonna let it sit there for a little bit and compress this rope, put the piston all the way down again and try to put more rope into the cylinder. So we've let it sit for a little bit, now we're gonna drop it all the way down again. And see if we can shove any more rope into the cylinder. The screwdriver really helps. This is actually the first time I've used it. Okay, so now we have the cylinder filled with rope. We're gonna push it up, and you should feel it get really tight and compress the rope. Which we did. We can't turn the motor anymore. We probably could if we put a breaker bar on it, but you don't want to break anything. So the cylinder is now completely stuffed with rope, and now when we take the keepers off, the valve should not fall into the cylinder. Okay, so we're on cylinder number 3. I'm gonna start off with this exhaust valve. So just take a magnet, can't remember what these are called, but I just take it off with a magnet and sit it on the intake side so you don't forget it. Take your valve keeper removal tool, the smaller one, stick it on top of the valve as centered as possible. Now, this usually takes 2 to 3 whacks to get it off. Now, I always take at least 3 whacks to get off myself, but here we go. Oh, first whack. So in this tool, we have the retainer and the keeper. So in this tool, we have the spring retainer, and we have the 2 keepers. To get these retainers out, I just take a pick and work them out. Sometimes it's a little tricky because this is a pretty strong magnet. Put it aside, and then I like to reassemble the keepers into the retainer. Now if you look at it, there's a ridge on these. It's really hard to see. This ridge goes on the top of the valve, or on the retainer. These only go in one way. Put them back in and they fit perfectly. Now, be careful not to ever lose these. If you drop it in the engine, you need to hope and pray that it falls all the way down to the oil pan or an invisible spot you can get with a magnet. If not, you could lose it forever and your engine could go bang if they get sucked up by the oil pump. So put the keepers in the retainer right there, set it aside or somewhere in safekeeping so you do not lose it. Now pull the spring out. I like to set it aside and leave it exactly how it was standing up, because this only goes in one way, I believe. It needs to go in the exact same way, so I just set it aside like that and make sure I put it in the exact same way. Then you take your valve seal puller and stick it down in the cylinder. Get it on the seal, wiggle and pull, and you got it out. This is what the old dirty seal looks like, and this is about how you should grip it when it's actually in the cylinder, or not in the cylinder, when it's on the valve. So there's the old seal. These were smoking a good bit. So now we're going to take our exhaust seal, our brand new exhaust seal, and put it on the valve. Take the new seal, stick it on top of the valve, push it on, it's kind of snug. Take the installer tool, push it all the way down. And then to make sure it's seated, go around in circles and tap on it just to make sure it's seated, and you'll know if it's seated well or not if it stays in. And it stayed in. So now it's on the seal. I like just to double check it because I do not want to have to redo these. It's good. And now if you're wondering if the valve is going to fall in the cylinder or not, you can actually push on it and it's not budging at all. So we have it pretty stuffed with rope. Put the spring back in. Be careful not to drop it. Put the retainer back in with the keepers. And then take the removal tool, stick the installing end on it. Safety first. Wear safety glasses in case the keepers spray somewhere because they're not seated well. And just push really hard. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries. I think that did it. Now to be sure that they're seated properly, you can hit it with a hammer. I don't really have a hammer that can get in there. So I like to take the removal tool again, set it on top like you're gonna remove it, and just give it a couple taps. Not really hard, but just enough to compress the spring a little bit and make sure that the keepers are seated. And they are, they didn't go flying everywhere. And then reinstall the cap. And you're done. Now we just have to do it to the other frickin' seals, and it's gonna take all night. Okay guys, so there you go. I showed you how to change your valve stem seals. I only showed you on one of the valves, but it's literally the same exact process for all the other 23 seals on here. I think this might be basically the same process for every car that has overhead cams. If you're doing it on a car with overhead valves and like the cam in the middle of the engine, you don't need the keeper tool that I have. You can use like one of the C-clamp things. But like I said earlier, to get to this step, you gotta take everything off. The cams, timing belt, valve covers. So that'll be in the cam video. I don't think I had to show you this here. It's super easy to get to that part, but it's kind of scary. So hopefully this video makes it seem a little easier and less intimidating. It's not that difficult if you have the right tools like I have, and you just have to take your time. This definitely isn't going to be an afternoon project unless you've done it a whole bunch of times. The first time I did this, the first cylinder, so the first four valves, that probably took me over an hour to do because it was the first time doing it, and I haven't even looked up really like a how-to on how to do this. But on cylinder number 2, that only took me about 20 minutes for that cylinder, so I got progressively better. Hopefully I get even quicker and bang this out really quick. But yeah, there you go. Just make sure you get the right valve seals for your car. Like I said, for this 1J, the intakes and exhausts are different. I don't know how your car is, but these are different, and I'll have links to the tools in the description so you can do this job quickly and easily. Hope you learned something. Hope this makes you a little bit less scared to do it, and I will see you guys next time.